Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. You're not just listening to history, you're living it. Tonight, you wake up in the Paleolithic gloom of a Neanderthal world, roughly 60,000 years ago, a bed of dried moss, inside a smoke-stained cave, somewhere in Ice Age Europe. Your first breath of air is cold, thick with soot and something distinctly musky. Your first thought, I'm not going to make it. And, to be honest, you probably won't survive this. Neanderthals aren't your distant, confused cousins anymore. They're your roommates, and they are built. Thick-browed, barrel-chested, and completely unbothered by the fact that there's frost on the ceiling. Meanwhile, you're huddled like a frozen pancake, wondering if anyone invented socks yet. Spoiler, they did not. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know what part of the world you're barely surviving prehistory from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up groggy, hungry, and extremely cold. You're lying near the back of the cave, and your breath puffs out in little clouds. The roof is low, the walls curve in, and the only light comes from a pile of glowing embers surrounded by soot-covered stones. Outside the mouth of the cave, morning is breaking. Not that it's bright, just a little less dark. The air smells like old fire, dried meat, and people who haven't discovered personal hygiene yet. There are about a dozen others in here, most of them still sleeping under furs. Some are already up silently moving, stretching thick arms, picking through the ashes. Your limbs are stiff. Your back aches. You slept on stone. No mattress. No memory foam. Just a flattened patch of grass and fur that you probably share with at least one lice colony. Someone hands you a sharp stick and grunts. You stare at it. They grunt louder. Right. It's not a threat. It's breakfast prep time. You shuffle over to the others and watch them carve into yesterday's catch. Something vaguely deer-shaped. They're scraping off meat with stone flakes, prying bones apart with tools made from antler and jawbone. You're not squeamish, but this is a lot before sunrise. A child chews on a strip of dried sinew and stares at you like you're a weirdly shaped tree. You smile. They do not smile back. A Neanderthal woman squats by the fire and cracks a long bone with a rock. The marrow oozes out. She slurps it from one end. Another person takes the other end. No utensils, no plates. Just hands and mouths and very sharp teeth. You're offered a turn. You hesitate. It's warm, greasy, slightly gritty. But honestly, not bad. You sit near the fire, trying to mimic everyone else. Your breath comes faster than theirs. Your eyes sting from the smoke. Your fingers are already numb. It's not even a full hour into your new life, and your 21st century immune system is filing a resignation letter. But you're here, and they're letting you stay for now. One man, who might be the group's leader, or just the loudest one, points to the entrance, then at you, then makes a throwing motion. You're going out. You don't know what for. Hunting? Gathering? Firewood? Honestly, it could be anything. There is no daily planner here, just instinct and necessity. You wrap a hide around yourself and follow the others out of the cave. The cold slaps you in the face like it's been waiting all night. The wind is sharp. The ground is crusted with frost. Your feet sink into mud and moss, and every step feels like it might be your last. Above you, the sky is pale, the color of worn bone. A few birds shriek overhead, probably scavengers. Your companions don't seem bothered. One of them crouches by a patch of shrubs and digs something up tubers, maybe. Another pulls a long stick from under a tree, scrapes the bark off with a flint knife, and tests its weight. Everything is a tool. Everything has a purpose. And you're still trying to stop your nose from dripping. They don't wait for you. They move quickly, low to the ground, eyes scanning, ears twitching. Every rock, every rustle could mean food or something that wants to eat you. You hear a low growl in the distance, or maybe it was just your stomach. The sun doesn't rise so much as it begrudgingly appears, casting long shadows over the landscape. Hills roll out in every direction, dotted with dead trees and skeletal brush. You think you see smoke in the distance, maybe another group, or maybe something burning. Historians still argue whether Neanderthal groups traded with each other or stayed isolated, but one thing's certain: they were territorial. If you wander too far into someone else's hunting zone, the welcome committee might be carrying clubs. By midday, your body is screaming. Your back hurts. Your calves ache. You're sweating under a hide that smells like 10 years of bad decisions. And the worst part? No coffee. Not even a sip. You sit on a flat rock and pretend you're just scouting the terrain, but everyone knows you're stalling. A boy not even full-grown walks by with 3 birds hanging from a vine over his shoulder. He doesn't say anything, but his face says it all. You are so not built for this. Back at the cave, someone is skinning a rabbit with movements so fluid it looks like they're folding laundry. Another person is boiling bark in a clay-lined pit, adding herbs you don't recognize. It smells bitter and earthy. Someone hands you a bone flute. You fumble with it. You blow into it. It squeaks. They laugh. It's okay. Even in prehistory, everyone needs the group clown. As night begins to fall, the temperature drops again. You retreat into the cave with the rest of them, trying to warm up near the fire. You choose something tough and smoky. You can't tell if it's meat or mushroom. At this point, you don't even care. Someone hands you a pelt. Not for sleeping, for sewing. You stare at it, then at the bone needle, then at the thread made of gut. And all you can think is, you're going to be very cold, very fast, if they expect a hoodie by morning. You smile. They grunt. Progress. You're starting to understand that in Neanderthal life, food isn't just something you eat. It's something you chase, carry, crack open, scrape, chew for hours, and occasionally gag on. There are no meal times, no snack breaks, just a constant state of near starvation interrupted by bursts of frantic chewing. This morning, your first real meal is pressed into your hand before you're fully awake. It's cold. It's hard. It's furry. You blink down at the item in question. A frozen lump of meat wrapped in something that might be rabbit pelt, or rat, or weasel. It's not labeled. A stocky woman with soot-dark hair grunts at you, then uses a stone scraper to peel back the hide with one quick stroke. She yanks the skin free like she's unwrapping a very unpleasant gift and hands the meat back to you. Warmth from her hands lingers on your fingers for just a second, and then it's gone. Now it's just you, and the meat, and the unblinking eyes of the cave's resident toddler, who seems to be judging your every move. You take a cautious bite. It's cold, not just coldacey. The meat inside is tough, fibrous, and feels like it's halfway between thawed and fossilized. You chew, and chew, and chew. By the fourth bite, your jaw feels like it's had a full workout. You glance around. No one else seems to be having this problem. They're all eating casually, methodically, with a kind of efficiency that says, this is normal. Next comes the bone marrow. One of the older men cracks a thick femur open with a single blow from a round stone. The bone splits cleanly, revealing a pale, greasy core. He slurps it straight from the opening, smacking his lips with satisfaction, then passes it to the next person. The marrow is rich, fatty, and oddly sweet. A woman scoops some out with a stick and offers it to you. You hesitate, but only for a second. You're learning. It's warm, surprisingly pleasant actually, like a prehistoric butter shot. You nod your thanks. Marrow is calorie gold. Historians widely agree that Neanderthals had massive energy needs far beyond your modern 2,000-calorie lunch plan. Between their bulky builds, cold climate, and non-stop physical effort, they probably needed 4,000, 5,000 calories a day just to not die. So every bite counts. Every crumb of dried meat, every scrap of fat, every crunch of roasted beetle or pine nut, it all matters. And they eat everything. Someone nearby is chewing the cartilage off an animal's ear like it's a delicacy. A child gleefully crunches on a beetle. A woman crushes dried berries into a paste and spreads it over a flat piece of tree bark, then licks it clean. There's zero waste. No forks. No complaints. Even the bones don't go unused. Smaller ones are tossed into a basket. They'll be sharpened into tools later. Larger ones get repurposed as hammers, spoons, digging sticks. You watch as a teenage boy expertly drills a hole through a shoulder blade using a flint point and a lot of elbow grease. He doesn't speak, just grinds and breathes and occasionally hums to himself. You're handed a chunk of dried meat wrapped in leaves. It smells like, well, it smells like regret, but you chew through it anyway. It's fibrous, gamey, and leaves tiny splinters in your teeth. You pick them out with a twig. Neanderthal dental floss. Nearby, someone unrolls a pouch made from hollowed-out gut. Inside is a collection of foraged fines nuts, berries, dried mushrooms, a single wrinkled apple. You point at the apple. The pouch holder narrows her eyes, then tosses it to you. It's sour, mealy, and delicious. You nod with exaggerated gratitude. She snorts, approves. The fire crackles, warming your knees. You try not to think about how your socks, which are actually just strips of hide wrapped around your ankles, are already damp. Your modern immune system is waving a tiny white flag, whispering, please, just give me one vitamin C tablet. But no. The only supplement here is chew harder. Your teeth ache. Not from cavities, but from use. Neanderthal teeth are huge, strong, and probably chipped. They use them like a third hand holding, gripping, stripping fibers. Historians still debate whether they sharpen tools with their mouths or just happen to chew through things like bark and tendon out of necessity. Either way, you're not doing that. Your dentist would have a stroke. You're offered a drink. It's served in a cracked horn and smells like fermented something. Maybe berries. Maybe root water. You take a sip. Oh, it's alive. Your mouth tingles. Not in a good way. In a this might turn into a hallucinogenic fever dream way. You force a smile. The horn passes to the next person. You don't ask what it was. No one tells you anyway. Still, this isn't just feeding time, it's social time. Meals are moments of peace. People grunt, gesture, share bits of food. A couple of kids poke each other with sticks and then collapse in laughter. Someone's humming a low, looping melody that sounds almost like a chant. The fire casts orange light across the stone walls, revealing faint scratches and marks. You lean in closer. Are those symbols? Animals? Just random scratches from years of sharpening tools? Historians still argue whether Neanderthal cave markings count as art, or were just practical markings. But in this moment, they feel intentional. The pattern, the repetition, the way some are just at child height, like little prehistoric doodles. It's communication, if not full language, then at least a form of shared memory. You realize you've stopped shivering. Not because it's warm, it definitely isn't, but because you're adapting. Slightly. Slowly. You're chewing what they chew, drinking what they drink, and even starting to understand some of the gestures. A hand on the chest means mine. A circle drawn in ash means finished. A double grunt might be approval, or indigestion, or both. You look around. No one's checking a phone. No one's distracted. Every person here is present, watching, listening, reacting. There's a rhythm to the way food moves through the group. First the elders, then the children, then the strongest hunters. You're somewhere in the middle now. That's not bad for your second day as a barely functional Ice Age intruder. You finish your last bite of what might have been squirrel liver. You don't ask. You don't want to know. But it sticks with you, literally, between two molars. Someone throws a bone into the fire. It pops, sending sparks into the air. The flames flicker against the stone ceiling. A few people begin settling back, stretching out under hides. One man yawns so wide you can see every molar. You copy him. Yawning is universal. Your stomach is full in that weird, caveman way stuffed, but still missing nutrients you didn't know you missed, like salt, or fiber, or hope. But you made it through breakfast. Barely. And now it's time to move again. You think the worst part is over after all. You've survived breakfast. You didn't choke on raw sinew, and nobody stabbed you for taking the last bit of marrow. Things are looking up, right? And then you step outside the cave. Instant regret. The cold doesn't hit you gently. It punctures you. Your breath freezes midair. Your eyelashes crust with moisture in seconds. The wind knifes through your hide cloak like it's made of paper. You squint against the brightness, sunlight, bouncing off snow-covered rocks, making everything blinding and sharp. Your lungs burn, literally burn. You take one full inhale and immediately double over coughing. It's like swallowing ice and smoke at the same time. The cold is so dry, it scorches your throat, and the lingering wood smoke from the fire still clings to your sinuses. Your nose runs instantly. Your eyes water, and you've got no tissues, just the sleeve of your fur wrap, which already smells like 10 different animals and probably still has bits of mammoth on it. The air hates you. You stand there, blinking, as the rest of the group files past you like nothing's wrong. They barely flinch. One of them is wearing a tunic made from animal hide that still has hair on it. Another is barefoot, on ice. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders and wonder how long your toes have before they fall off. Neanderthals evolved to thrive in these conditions. Their bodies were short, wide, and built for conserving heat. Barrel chests, broad noses, thick limbs, all of it designed to stay warm in an unforgiving ice age. You, on the other hand, are the evolutionary equivalent of a folding chair in a snowstorm. You don't even have body hair worth mentioning. And it's not just the cold, it's the air itself. You can taste the dryness. Every breath you take feels like it's trying to desiccate your organs. Your lips chap in real time. Your skin cracks. Your throat itches. Back in your modern life, you might use humidifiers, skin cream, and heated blankets. Here, you use nothing. Or, well, maybe animal fat. One of the Neanderthal women smears something on her cheeks that smells vaguely like rancid butter. She offers it to you. You decline, thinking she's joking. She is not joking. You wipe your nose with a frozen sleeve and hope frostbite doesn't start there. Meanwhile, they're on the move again. Your group is heading down a slope toward what looks like a frozen creek. Footprints have already broken the snow in places, revealing muddy ice beneath. You follow the leader, who doesn't say a word, but whose pace suggests that stopping equals death. You shuffle, you slip, you curse internally. You fall. Hard. Everyone turns around. No one helps you up. Someone grunts and keeps walking. You scramble back to your feet, covered in snow and shame, and pretend it didn't happen. Your tailbone knows better. You notice the terrain's brutal in other ways, too. Underneath the snow are jagged rocks and gnarled roots waiting to catch your foot. Nothing here is flat. Nothing here is kind. Even the trees seem to lean away from you, like they don't trust your modern softness. There's no trail, no markers, just an internal map the Neanderthals seem to share, passed down like a story told through bones and footsteps. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals navigated by memory, instinct, or celestial clues. But these folks don't hesitate. They know where they're going. You, on the other hand, are following footprints like a lost child at the mall. You stop to catch your breath. Big mistake. Your breath fogs, hangs, and then vanishes. The cold sinks back in deeper this time. Your body begins to shake, not just shiver tremble, like it's trying to start a fire through muscle contractions. You move again. You have to. Staying still is not an option. Out here still means dead, and it's not even lunch. Eventually, you come to a clearing. The group pauses. The leader points at some small, shriveled trees up ahead. For a moment, you think they're just taking in the view. Nope. It's firewood time. You bend to pick up a stick. Snap. Not good enough. Another grunt from the leader. He yanks a branch from a tree, tests it, nods, and bundles it over his shoulder. You copy him, lifting a limb heavier than your self-worth and trying not to look like you're dying inside. Your fingers go numb first, then your ears, then your toes. You try to tuck your hands into the sleeves of your hide wrap, but it's not built like a modern hoodie. It's stitched together with animal sinew, and the seams leak cold like a broken window. Your boots, or what passes for them, are just folded leather tied with rawhide. You've stepped in 3 puddles, and now every toe is colder than your ex's last text message. By the time the group decides to turn back toward camp, you are halfway to becoming a human icicle. But they move faster now. The firewood is secured. The wind has picked up. There's a storm coming, you can feel it. Not because you're attuned to nature, but because your face is literally stinging. Back at the cave, the fire is still burning, but just barely. A few embers glow under the ash. The wood you carried is dumped next to it. Someone begins breaking the branches, feeding them into the pit. Smoke curls up toward the roof, bringing warmth and that terrible, wonderful, smoky scent back to life. You sit near the flames. You don't care that your cloak is singed at the edges. You don't care that your hands are black with soot. You're warm. For the first time today, you can feel your fingers again. One of the older women sits next to you and offers a small pouch made from dried bladder. Inside is phtanimal grease. You recognize the smell. It's the same stuff she smeared on her cheeks earlier. She dips her fingers in and daubs some on your cracked knuckles. You nod in thanks. Maybe the air hates you a little less now. You wake up with a grunt caught somewhere between your chest and your mouth. Not a full sentence. Not even a word. Just a sound. A short, confused, gravelly noise that leaves your throat as if it forgot what language even is. You sit up slowly, blinking at the low light of the fire, and try again. Maybe a quiet hey or a good morning. But no, nothing. Your lips move, but your voice doesn't cooperate. The sounds that want to come out the comfortable cadence of English, the casual tones of your native tongue, are just missing. Somewhere between the Ice Age climate and your primitive new diet, your vocal confidence seems to have vanished overnight. You rub your face with both hands, trying to snap into alertness, but there's no alarm clock here, no snooze button, just the pressure of another frigid day that has already started without you. Around the fire, your Neanderthal hosts are already stirring. 2 adults are squatting near the flames, adding logs and blowing gently to coax the embers. A child is chewing a strip of dried meat, humming to herself a low, rhythmic murmur that somehow blends with the crackle of the fire. It feels like a conversation, but there are no words. And that's when it hits you. You haven't heard any real language in days. No syllables, no phrases, no past the marrow, or this tastes like old squirrel. Just grunts, huffs, gestures, glares. Everything in this world is communicated with tone and movement and sheer physical presence. You try a quiet hi again. Nothing happens. A nearby Neanderthal glances at you, unbothered, then returns to gutting a small animal, possibly rabbit, possibly not. You raise your eyebrows, point at the fire, and make a thumbs-up gesture. He blinks. You add a smile. Still no reaction. Right. Thumbs-ups don't exist yet. You glance around the cave, trying to pick up the rhythm. Communication here is more like a dance. People grunt to signal food is ready. They point with their chin. They wave with the whole arm, not just a hand. A shrug isn't just a shrug, it's layered with meaning, depending on how high the shoulders go, or how long the silence lasts afterward. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals had complex spoken language. Some believe they used proto-speech with basic words. Others argue they relied mostly on vocalizations and gestures. Anatomically, their vocal tracts could have supported speech, but maybe not the kind of singing in the shower fluency you're used to. One theory, they used musical tone shums, rhythms, repeated vocal patterns to transmit information. Honestly, that tracks. Because right now, you feel like a mime dropped into an a cappella group with no sheet music and a bad case of frostbite. Still, you try. Later that morning, a group leaves the cave with tools in hand. One of them points at you and grunts something sharp and clipped. You follow, mostly because you don't have a better plan. You walk in silence, except for the crunch of snow beneath your feet and the occasional low hum from one of the hunters. It's not exactly a song, but it's too consistent to be random. Maybe it's a warning system. Maybe it's comfort. Or maybe it's just how you pass the time when no one has invented Spotify yet. Eventually, the group reaches a narrow clearing where the snow has thinned. The leader points at the ground, some kind of track in the dirt. They spread out. You watch closely, trying to read the cues. One woman mimics the posture of a crouching animal. Another gestures in a circle, then holds up two fingers. Are they describing prey? Direction? Number? All of the above? You nod like you understand. You do not understand. But you follow, ducking under low branches, stepping where they step. There's no talking. Just the occasional grunt, a flick of the wrist, a quick movement of the eyes. The whole group operates like a machine, silent, fast, efficient. You are the one rusty gear in a system that doesn't have time for malfunctions. They stop suddenly. Everyone crouches. A finger goes to lips' universal silence. You hear a rustle nearby. Your heart rate triples. You stay perfectly still, except your left foot is somehow stuck in a patch of mud that makes a wet suction noise every time you try to move. The leader glares at you. You freeze, becoming one with the terrain. 2 minutes pass, then 5. Finally, the group relaxes. The animal, whatever it was, has vanished. Possibly spooked. Possibly never there to begin with. The moment passes, but the group stays in sync. Someone hands you a strip of dried root to chew. It's bitter, woody, but numbs your mouth in a vaguely pepperminty way. You nod in thanks. The nod is returned. That's progress. Back at the cave, you decide to try again. You gather a few pebbles and arrange them in a pattern crude attempt at a symbol. Maybe something to say me here, or food good. You step back, proud. A Neanderthal child walks by, squints at your creation, picks up one of the stones, licks it, and throws it into the fire. Right. Art is subjective. You're not discouraged. Later, you watch as two men use a series of gestures to coordinate moving a heavy log. They slap their chests, point at the log, raise their arms in tandem, and lift in one smooth motion. It's a full-blown choreography. No mistakes. No second guessing. Just seamless teamwork with zero spoken words. You try to copy a gesture, palm open, sweeping motion. You think it means it'll help. It actually means move aside. But hey, you were close. The most unexpected part of this wordless life is how expressive people still are. The arch of a brow, the twist of a mouth. Even laughter doesn't need translation. Someone spills water on their foot, slips, and lands in a pile of animal skins. The whole cave erupts in raspy chuckles. You laugh too. No one stops you. For a brief moment, you feel like you belong here. Just a little. Maybe language isn't just about words. Maybe it's presence, timing, intention. Neanderthals probably used touch more than modern humans. A reassuring hand on the shoulder, a nudge with the elbow, a shared glance that says more than an entire paragraph. You start noticing these tiny touches all around. It's not affection, it's function. It keeps the group in sync, emotionally and physically. Later that evening, as the fire burns low and the cave cools down, someone hands you a chunk of bark and a stick of charcoal. They start drawing lines on the wall, crude shapes, marks, spirals. You copy them, slowly, carefully. Your lines aren't elegant. They look like a toddler drew them with their feet. But someone nearby leans over, adds to your drawing, then nods once. You nod back. You don't say a word. You don't need to. You're starting to think Neanderthals were born with a superpower. And no, it's not hunting mammoths or surviving ice storms. It's sleeping. Deep, instant, unapologetic sleep. The kind that hits like a rock and doesn't let go until the sun rises again. no matter how cold or loud or rocky your environment is. Meanwhile, you've spent the last few hours tossing and turning on what feels like a pile of lumpy bones wrapped in animal fur. Your back is in open rebellion. Your right arm is asleep, but the rest of you isn't. You can hear a baby snoring next to you. A baby. In the Ice Age. Just peacefully snoozing away, like this is the Ritz-Carlton of prehistoric shelters. You've built a crude pillow out of moss and folded hides, but it's either too high or too damp, and now your neck feels like it's stuck in a question mark. You try curling into a ball. That just makes your knees freeze. You try stretching out flat. That's somehow worse. Everything feels sharp and slightly wet. You roll over for the 30th time and land your elbow in something sticky. You don't check what it is. Eventually, after what feels like 100 years, you do fall asleep. Sort of. It's not the gentle drift off you're used to. There's no memory foam, no ambient rain sounds, no late night scrolling to tire your eyes. Just bone-tired exhaustion, an aching jaw, and the hope that nothing with claws wanders in while you're unconscious. And then, just when your brain finally begins to surrender, you're shaken awake, a hand on your shoulder, firm, insistent, no words, no gentle rise and shine, just a grunt, a nod, and a cold gust of wind hitting your face as someone pulls back the hide flap covering the cave's entrance. Time to go. It's still dark. Your brain screams. Your bones protest. Your eyelids threaten to unionize. But there's no negotiation here. Everyone else is already moving, grabbing tools, wrapping cloaks, lacing up their primitive boots with quiet efficiency. You stumble to your feet like a stunned goat and follow them out into the morning. And by morning, you mean pre-morning. The sun hasn't even committed to showing up yet. The horizon is a barely there shade of indigo. Your breath fogs the air in long, slow plumes, and the snow underfoot crunches like stale crackers. You try to shake off the fog in your head, but your body feels like it's still halfway in another dimension. Welcome to Neanderthal morning. Today's mission isn't a hunt. It's something quieter. You're gathering. Turns out, Neanderthals were far more balanced in their diet than the old stereotypes suggest. Yes, they were meat eaters. And yes, they chased terrifying animals across frozen plains. But they also foraged, carefully, methodically, almost scientifically. You follow a small group through a winding forest path, your breath catching on every branch that slaps you in the face. The trees are skeletal this time of year bare, spindly, and clattering softly in the wind like old bones. The ground crunches underfoot, a mix of snow, frozen mud, and the occasional prehistoric rabbit dropping. Eventually, the group spreads out. No one says a word, but everyone seems to know what they're looking for. You trail behind one of the women, broad-shouldered, quiet, alert. She crouches low beside a shrub and plucks a few dark berries, turning them carefully in her hands. She pops one in her mouth, chews, and nods. You lean down, trying to do the same. But the moment your fingers touch the nearest berry, her hand shoots out and grabs your wrist. She shakes her head, points to a different cluster. Ah, those ones. You try again. This time, she lets you pluck them. You hold them up like you've just solved a riddle, and she gives the faintest grunt of approval before moving on. Progress. You continue deeper into the woods. Roots and tubers are next. You're handed a digging stick, sharpened at one end, smooth at the other, and pointed toward a patch of frost-covered earth. The soil is rock hard. Your hands are already stiff from the cold, but you dig anyway. Push, twist, Pry. Eventually, something gives. You pull out a knobby root the size of your forearm. It's pale, fibrous, and smells vaguely peppery. You hold it up triumphantly. Someone nearby glances over, nods, and then gestures for you to keep digging. This isn't a scavenger hunt at survival. Back in the open clearing, someone finds a honeycomb wedged between rocks. There's a subtle ripple of excitement, subtle by Neanderthal standards, meaning 3 grunts instead of 1. They break it open carefully, passing around golden chunks of honeycomb. You're offered a piece. It's warm, sweet, and almost shockingly familiar. For a moment, your body forgets it's miserable. The sugar hits your brain like a firework. You close your eyes, let the flavor sink in. The others chew quietly, reverently. No one talks. No one rushes. Just a small shared moment of sweetness, and then it's back to work. You help gather bark, some lichens, and a few mushrooms, each inspected thoroughly by a more experienced forager before being added to the pack. Apparently, death by mushroom is not on the agenda today. Neanderthals understood their plants. Historians now believe they used herbs to treat pain, clean wounds, even aid digestion. One root you pick has a sticky sap that, when rubbed between fingers, becomes gluey perfect for attaching stone blades to wooden shafts. Another leaf, when crushed, releases a bitter scent that repels insects. You sniff it, gag slightly, then dab some behind your ears anyway, just in case. By mid-morning, your legs ache, your arms are sore, and your stomach is threatening to devour your liver. But the foraging is done. Back at camp, everything is sorted in silence. Berries in one pouch, roots in another, bitter herbs in their own basket. One of the elders starts boiling water in a crude vessel made from clay and hide. Someone tosses in a few forage bits. The smell rises slowly, earthy, herbal, almost like tea brewed in a bog. You sip cautiously. It's warm, a little sour, but strangely calming. You're not sure what's in it: mint, bark, courage, but it softens the edges of your fatigue. Your muscles relax just a little. Your fingers stop trembling from the cold. For the first time all day, you exhale without seeing it as steam. You sit by the fire, half asleep, the cup still warm in your hands. You didn't just watch survival today, you participated. You dug roots. You picked leaves. You sipped prehistoric tea. And you didn't die. You lean back against the cave wall, eyelids heavy, brain buzzing. Maybe tonight, you'll sleep a little better. You open your eyes to a world painted in pale blue just before sunrise, just before anything has truly begun. But something's different this morning. There's a tension in the air, a silence that feels thicker. The cave is mostly empty. Most of the others have already gone. You sit up groggily, stretch your aching arms, and catch a glimpse of 2 figures sharpening tools near the entrance. One is polishing a thick wooden shaft. The other checks a flint blade with practiced fingers. The fire is just embers now, glowing like coals under ash, and the smell of smoke clings to your skin like a second blanket. You step outside and immediately feel it. The day's mood isn't for foraging or wandering. It's a hunting day. Your breath curls into mist as you glance around. The hunting group is gathering in the open field nearby. 5 Neanderthals, each armed with long spears, thick hide cloaks, and the kind of unshakable calm that suggests they've done this hundreds of times. One of them gestures for you to join. Oh, great. You, the person who once got winded walking upstairs with groceries, are now going to help hunt a creature that probably outweighs your entire extended family. As the group starts moving, you fall into line, No one speaks. The forest absorbs everything: footsteps, breath, the occasional creak of a wooden spear haft. It's as if the landscape itself is holding its breath. Neanderthals weren't just brutish ambush predators. They were strategic. They used landscape to their advantage: corridors between rocks, dead-end gullies, cliff edges. Their hunting techniques involved teamwork, spatial memory, and serious patience. But you're just trying not to sneeze. After an hour of careful hiking, the leader raises a hand. The group halts. They're near a grove of frost-covered shrubs. You spot it. A deer. Small, nimble, alert. Its ears twitch at every sound. Its eyes scan the trees, already on edge. You freeze, breath caught in your throat. The hunters begin to fan out, each one taking a silent path through the trees, circling it. You crouch behind a fallen log, heart pounding. The plan seems to be: push the deer into a trap, maybe a natural choke point or ambush site. They don't chase, they channel. You inch forward, trying to copy their movement-slow steps, deliberate shifts. But the ground is a mess of dry leaves and frost, and your boot crunches louder than you'd like. The deer twitches. Everyone freezes. One of the hunters narrows his eyes at you. Oops. Thankfully, the deer doesn't bolt yet. Two hunters reposition, flanking from the sides. One pulls back his arm, spear cocked, and waits. You hold your breath. The deer flicks its tail, looks one way, then the other, and then chaos. One hunter yells, a sudden sharp cry that pierces the silence. The deer jumps. Two more voices join in, booming and guttural. The deer bolts in the only direction left, straight into the narrow pass between two boulders, right where they want it. The lead hunter throws his spear. It whistles through the air, then thuds. Hit. Not a kill, but a hit. The deer stumbles. Another hunter rushes forward, his club raised high. Two others converge from the sides. It's over in seconds fast, brutal, efficient. You stay frozen in place, stunned. Not just by the kill, but by how quiet it was. No celebration, no cheer. Just nods, quick gestures, and a swift assessment of the wound. One hunter kneels, touches the deer's side, then begins the butchering process on the spot. The scent of blood cuts through the morning chill. You hesitate, but one of the hunters gestures for you to come closer. He hands you a stone blade and points to a specific line along the deer's haunch. You kneel, uncertain, and begin slicing along the grain of the muscle as best you can. It's harder than you imagined. The hide is thick. The fat is slippery. Your hands are cold and clumsy, but you focus. One of the others shows you how to cut around tendons. Another points to glands you should avoid puncturing. It's biology class meets horror film, but your stomach doesn't turn. Not anymore. You're adapting. One piece at a time, the animal is reduced to parts meat, fat, bone, sinew. Nothing is wasted. Even the hooves are tucked away for tool making later. The head is carefully wrapped and carried. It will be cleaned, revered, maybe even painted. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals performed ritual burials or honored animal spirits. But what's clear is this: they had respect and efficiency and zero time for your moral dilemmas. On the way back, your arms ache from carrying bundles of meat. The load is heavy, greasy, warm in a way that makes you constantly aware of what it used to be. You don't speak. No one does. The trail is quiet, except for the occasional snap of a twig or grunt of exertion. Back at the cave, the butchering continues. Meat is hung from poles. Fat is rendered in a shallow stone bowl near the fire. Someone begins scraping the hide to tan later. The place smells like smoke, blood, and earth, and it feels normal. You sit by the fire, knife in hand, trying to separate a tough sinew from a strip of meat. One of the women beside you silently adjusts your grip. No words, just guidance. You nod. You're learning. Slowly, but learning. You never thought survival would feel like such a quiet, shared thing. Like a secret language built not from syllables, but from muscle, breath, and the rhythm of shared necessity. By nightfall, you're sore, blood-stained, and exhausted. But you've eaten well fresh meat, fire-roasted, unseasoned, but filling. Your body is heavy with fatigue, but not the hopeless kind, the earned kind. As you settle in for the night, you look around the cave not just with awe, but with a strange sort of gratitude. You're still alive, and tomorrow you'll try again. It's not even properly morning yet. The sky's still holding on to the last traces of night, as if it's not quite ready to let the day begin. But the Neanderthals, they're already moving. You blink through the cold haze of your breath and realize that most of the cave has been quietly, efficiently emptied. Hides are being rolled, bones packed into bundles, tools bundled into wraps of leather. Even the leftover meat is being stored in little gut-woven pouches, sealed with moss and ash to keep it from spoiling. You sit up, groggy, sore, and smelling like smoke, and something else you don't want to investigate too closely, and it finally hits you. Today is a moving day. You're not sure where you're going, or how far, or why exactly this cave, which you were just beginning to accept as home, is suddenly out of style. But no one's handing out explanations this morning. You just get handed a bundle and a grunt that probably translates to carry this or starve. You're starting to understand now why modern humans like houses with roofs and plumbing. Neanderthals, though, were flexible. They didn't settle in one spot and build cute little fences around their territory. Their life was about mobility, reading the seasons, watching for game migrations, knowing when a shelter had outlived its usefulness. Historians think they followed a pattern of semi-regular movement, circling familiar hunting grounds, rotating between caves depending on the season and resources, which means time to pack up and go. Your bundle is heavier than expected. It's some combination of smoked meat, stone tools, and something that might be a rolled-up animal bladder. You try not to think about it too much as you sling it over your shoulder and follow the rest of the group into the pale, freezing dawn. The terrain starts off gently, soft snow, crunching beneath your feet, tall, bare trees casting long shadows in the blue light. The forest is still half asleep, quiet except for the sound of your trudging boots and the occasional grunt from someone adjusting their load. Your breath puffs out in thick clouds, and within minutes, your fingers are numb. You ask yourself, not for the first time, why didn't you just stay in the cave? But then again, it wasn't your choice. You follow the line of Neanderthals single file, trying to walk where they step to avoid falling into hidden patches of ice. The woman in front of you walks with incredible balance barefoot on snow-packed ground, carrying a baby on her hip like it weighs nothing. The baby blinks at you with curiosity, chewing absently on a strip of sinew. You smile. The baby does not smile back. After about an hour, your shoulders are screaming. Your thighs feel like they're made of stone, and you've already fallen twice. Once into a snowdrift, and once while trying to discreetly relieve yourself behind a tree. The 6-year-old who spotted you will never let it go. He's been making that same mocking squat gesture ever since. But the group keeps moving. Neanderthals weren't aimless wanderers. They were incredibly attuned to their environment. They knew where to find flint, fresh water, and shelter. They could recognize landmarks most people today wouldn't even register. A tilted boulder, a twisted tree, a certain bird call that hinted at nearby prey. You start to notice it too, how the leader pauses at each clearing, scanning the terrain like a living GPS from the Stone Age. Eventually, the trail slopes upward. You groan internally. It's a long, slow climb over a rocky ridge dusted with snow and loose pebbles. Your feet slip every few steps. Your arms flail for balance, and you try desperately not to drop your bundle of mystery meat and sharpened rocks. Near the top, you almost give up. But then, as you crest the ridge, you see it. A wide open valley below, snow-covered, yes, but speckled with signs of life. Animal tracks, low shrubs, a partially frozen stream that cuts a thin, silver line through the terrain. And just ahead, tucked into the base of a limestone outcrop, a shallow cave. That's the spot. No one claps. No one celebrates. They just pick up speed and begin setting up. You follow them down the slope, panting like you've just run a marathon with a backpack full of anvils. At the new site, everyone drops their gear and immediately falls into roles. One man begins clearing snow from the cave's mouth. 2 others build a fire ring with stones. The women unpack tools and start reshaping hides for sleeping mats. There's no talking, just movement. Like ants building a new hill. You help unload what you carried: some meat, a pouch of seeds, and a hide-wrapped bundle that turns out to be half a deer leg, still slightly frozen. You hand it off and try not to look at your hands, which are red, raw, and trembling from the cold. Someone throws you a task. Collect firewood. You go. The forest nearby is denser here, but the branches are brittle from the cold. You gather sticks, logs, pine cones, anything that looks burnable. At one point, you find a fallen tree that's already been half stripped of bark. You kneel to pry loose some dry chunks, and in doing so, disturb a squirrel nest. The squirrel is not pleased. You flee with a chunk of branch and your dignity mostly intact. Back at camp, a small fire is already crackling. You toss your finds into the pile. Someone nods. Someone else grunts. In Neanderthal terms, you're practically getting high fives. Later, your invitador, gestured Otto help construct a windbreak. It's simple. Branches jammed into the ground, tied with vine, layered with hides to trap heat. You work with another man who barely acknowledges you, but at one point, he adjusts your knots with a surprisingly gentle hand. Progress. Dinner is simple roasted meat on hot stones, shared communally with the usual complete lack of small talk. You chew in silence, trying to warm your hands near the fire while also not catching them on fire. There's laughter nearby. Someone slipped while peeing again. You feel less alone. Afterwards, you help smooth moss into place for bedding. It's not a mattress. It's not even comfortable. But it's softish. You collapse onto it, wrapped in a hide, smoke in your hair, soreness in every limb, and the steady breath of others around you like a lullaby of survival. And despite everything, the cold, the fatigue, the squirrel, you feel something calm rising in your chest. You moved. You adapted. And tonight, under a new roof of stone and stars, you'll try to sleep like someone who just helped build a home. The cave smells different this morning. Not bad exactly, just busier. There's smoke in the air again, but also the scent of damp hide, cracked marrow bones, half-scraped fat, and a faint mustiness from the moss that's still drying out near the wall. And the soundscape has changed to less quiet. More low chatter, tool scraping, fire crackling, a baby fussing somewhere behind you. Someone sneezes. Someone else immediately hands them a fistful of chewed bark. You're beginning to realize this isn't just a pit stop. It's a camp. And today, you're not going anywhere. Your body is grateful. You're sore in places you didn't know had nerves. Your shoulders feel like they've been carrying rocks for a week, which, well, they kind of have, and your calves are screaming like angry toddlers. So the thought of staying put for just one full day? Honestly, it feels luxurious. But of course, staying put doesn't mean resting. Not here. Not ever. Because while Neanderthals didn't live in cities or kingdoms or scroll TikTok endlessly before bed, they still built, maintained, and managed their lives in surprisingly complex ways. Life wasn't just hunt, eat, sleep, repeat. It was full of micro course tasks that, when you stack them together, created something we might call a domestic rhythm. And today, you get to join that rhythm. First assignment, scraping hides. A man gestures for you to sit beside a large, stretched out animal skin, tied taut over a frame made of bent branches. You're handed a flat stone with a sharpened edge, something between a spatula and a murder weapon, and shown how to drag it across the hide to remove the last bits of fat and membrane. It's gross. There's no way around it. The smell is strong. The texture is questionable. The goo is sticky. But you grit your teeth and scrape. And scrape. And scrape. The sound becomes strangely hypnotic. Shh, shh, shh. You notice the man next to you humming under his breath. The child beside him is holding a small bone and mimicking the motion with complete focus, even though his scraping is more like enthusiastic poking. You realize this is probably how skills are passed on, not through lectures or diagrams, but by watching, imitating, trying, failing, trying again, and failing again. You accidentally tear a chunk in the hide. The man pauses, looks at it, looks at you, then shrugs and keeps working. No scolding, just learning. Once the scraping is done, the hide is soaked in a mix of water and mashed up brains. Yes, brains. Apparently, animal brains contain enzymes that help soften and preserve leather. It's science. It's effective. It's also the worst smelling soup you've ever been near. Next up, tool repair. You're handed a dull flint blade and pointed toward a man seated on a flat rock, surrounded by chips of stone. He barely looks up, just grunts and holds out his hand for the blade. You give it to him. He rolls it between his fingers, inspects the edge, then selects a fresh core from a nearby pile. And then Tinky begins striking. Sharp, precise blows. Little shards fly off in rhythmic pings, landing on the snow like glassy petals. You watch, mesmerized. It's like watching someone solve a puzzle with hammers. The way he rotates the flint, judges the angles, predicts where the crack will run. He makes you one blade, then another, then hands you one that's just a little lopsided. He nods for you to try. Your first hit is too hard. The flint splits badly. Useless. Second try, too soft. No chip at all. Third try, just right. A sliver comes off, and beneath it, a sharper edge emerges. You look up. The man grunts, a sound that might mean finally or acceptable, or you didn't completely embarrass yourself. Either way, you'll take it. Later in the afternoon, it's cooking time. You're not allowed near the fire knot yet, but you're given a task: crush dried seeds using a heavy stone. You kneel beside a woman who is already grinding something that looks like chestnuts into a paste. You copy her, slowly, turning the seeds into a kind of gritty flour. She adds water, stirs it with a stick, then places the paste on a flat stone near the fire to bake. It becomes a sort of primitive pancake. You get a bite. It's warm, dense, slightly sweet from the nuts, chewy. And compared to raw roots and dried meat, it's practically gourmet. Historians still argue, she might say, if she had a podcast, whether Neanderthals regularly cooked with fire or only used it for warmth. But what's becoming obvious, just from today, is that they used fire. Comfortably, competently, and often. They roasted meat. They heated stones to drop into water for boiling. They even sometimes used fire to harden the tips of wooden spears. You chew your nut pancake slowly, sitting near the warmth, letting your shoulders finally drop. There's smoke in your eyes. Someone nearby is humming again. The baby is asleep in a fur wrap. And for a moment, time feels stretchy, as if it might be okay to just be here, doing small things, with no clock, no buzzing notifications, no schedule, just tasks, and rest, and rhythm. You glance up at the cave walls. There are faint mark scratches, stains, possibly even early art. Someone has rubbed red ochre onto the stone in lines that might represent animals, or seasons, or maybe just boredom. The point is, they left marks. They wanted to remember, or to say, we were here. Even in this quiet, brutal, freezing world, there was meaning. There was life. As the fire dims and the shadows stretch across the stone floor, someone passes you another hide to fold. Your hands obey, without complaint. You're tired, yes, but not the kind of tired you feel after staring at screens all day. This is a deeper tired, a better tired, earned. You fold the hide. You place it near the sleeping mats. You lie down. And for the first time since arriving in this impossible, unforgiving world, you fall asleep quickly, like a Neanderthal. You wake to the sound of chewing, not soft breakfast in bed chewing, more like the unmistakable crunch of bone and sinew being methodically ground between massive jaws. You open one eye. It's not a bear, thankfully. Just one of the older Neanderthals, casually enjoying a leftover marrow bone by the fire. He doesn't notice you. He's laser focused on his snack, using a stone flake to scoop out the last gooey bits with all the elegance of someone eating yogurt with a screwdriver. You sit up slowly, blanket of hide sliding off your shoulders. Your arms ache. Again. Your knees feel like they've been hammered by a tribe of angry squirrels. Also again. But something about this particular morning feels different. Because today, you're going on your very first solo task. Okay, not completely solo. More like, go fetch something with one other person and try not to embarrass yourself or die solo. The task? Water. There's a nearby spring about, a half-hour's walk downhill, through the woods, past some frozen moss beds, and under a canopy of knotted, bare-limbed trees. Your job is to help collect water in a series of hollowed-out gourds and return without dropping them, cracking them, or getting eaten. Simple. But remember, no faucets, no plumbing, no backpack with built-in hydration system. Just ancient containers slung on a rope, bouncing against your hip with every step. You set out just after sunrise with a tall, quiet Neanderthal named Well. You never got his name, but you've been calling him Shoulders in your head because his upper body is roughly the width of a refrigerator. The two of you walk in silence. The snow is thinner, here patchy ground, exposed in places, damp, but not frozen solid. Birds chirp somewhere in the trees. A fox darts across the path and vanishes like a ghost into the brush. You slip once on a mossy rock, but Shoulders catches your arm without a word. Neanderthals may not have invented small talk, but they clearly understood teamwork. When you reach the spring, it's half frozen, one side still liquid, gurgling quietly through a crevice in the rocks. The rest is coated in a film of pale ice. You crouch beside it and watch as Shoulders uses a stick to break the crust. Then, one by one, you both begin dipping the gourds. The water is clear and painfully cold. You splash a little on your hands and regret it immediately. Your fingers go numb in seconds, but you keep filling the containers, sealing each one with a plug of moss, tying them carefully back onto the rope. As you work, you notice something carved into the stone above the spring. Marks. Not words. Not even pictures, really. Just a series of gouges long, shallow, rhythmic. You run your fingers across them. They're deliberate, intentional. Was someone keeping count? Marking time? Claiming the spring? Historians still argue whether Neanderthals had symbolic thinking, whether they understood representation the way modern humans do writing, drawing, even abstract thought. But discoveries like this, scratches in caves, ochre marks on bones, beads carved from animal teeth suggest that maybe they did. Maybe not in the way we imagine, but in a way that mattered to them. You sling the full water rope over your shoulder and begin the walk back. It's heavier now and slipperier. The gourds sway with every step. At one point, one thunks hard against your hip. You check for cracks, find none, and continue. The cold bites at your face, but the trees shield you from the worst of the wind. When you finally arrive back at the camp, you're flushed, sweating, and feel like your arms are about to fall off. But you didn't spill anything, didn't break anything, didn't get eaten. Victory. You place the gourds near the fire. A woman immediately begins pouring some into a shallow cooking pot. Another heats a stone to drop inside, warming the water for a poultice. Someone else sets one aside for drinking. No ceremony, just silent, efficient use of the resource. You've never felt so proud to deliver water in your life. Later that afternoon, you get another task, this one even less glamorous: waste removal. Because yes, even in the Ice Age, someone has to make sure the camp doesn't turn into a giant prehistoric litter box. You're handed a long stick and a small hide sack. You and a teenage Neanderthal girl head off toward a flat clearing downhill, where discarded bones, cracked skulls, and other less pleasant things have been left. There's no word for it, no job title, just the unspoken understanding that part of surviving means managing what you leave behind. As you work, the girl begins stacking bones into small piles, not at random type. Long bones here, skulls there, rib fragments elsewhere. She seems to have a system. You ask, gesturing, since speaking still feels like talking to a very patient dog, if she's making tools. She nods, then shows you one, a thin sliver of shin bone, sharpened into a needle. You blink. Of course, waste wasn't waste. Bones became tools. Tendons became thread. Ash became antiseptic. Even dung could be used as fuel or insect repellent when dried. Nothing was truly useless. You clean the area as best you can, trying not to gag every time you encounter something that looks too recent. The girl seems unbothered. She hums occasionally. At one point, she sticks a feather into your hair and laughs at your confused expression. You laugh too. And in that moment, surrounded by bones and smoke and everything modern life avoids talking about, you feel something strange. Connection, not just to her, but to all of this. The rhythms, the repetition, the constant dance of life, death, use, reuse, survive. Later that night, when you sit by the fire with sore arms and frizzed up feather hair, someone hands you a carved cup of warm water. You sip it slowly, watching sparks fly up into the dark. You carried water. You organized bones. You didn't do anything heroic. You just helped. And in this world, that's more than enough. Your eyes open to the familiar flicker of firelight dancing against damp stone. The smell of charred meat and smoke lingers, faint but comforting, like the prehistoric version of your favorite old blanket. Your limbs ache, as usual. Your joints protest when you stretch. But there's a strange warmth blooming in your chest this morning, a tiny, reluctant sense of pride. You survived another day. Barely. And today, you're doing something different. You're not hauling water or getting chased by a fox or nearly freezing your lungs in a mountain stream. Today, you're going to make things. Real things. Things that keep you alive. Or at least, that keep someone else from freezing their Neanderthal butt off. You shuffle over to the main hearth, where the others are already working. There's no announcement, no schedule taped to the wall, just a quiet hum of activity. People hunched over tools, hands busy, heads down. The air is thick with focus and the occasional puff of breath from someone frustrated with a particularly stubborn bone. Your first task, flint work. One of the elders gestures for you to sit. He drops a large chunk of flint into your lap and hands you a hammerstone and oblong river pebble, worn smooth from years of use. Then he raises his eyebrows like, "Go on then." "Right. You've seen this done a few times now. Strike the flint at the right angle, with the right force, in just the right spot. Simple. Except, it's not. Your first few hits bounce uselessly. Then you strike too hard, and a big, ugly chunk breaks off, taking half the usable flint with it. The elder winces slightly. You try again. This time, a small flake shears off cleanly. It's thin, sharp, and glints slightly in the firelight. The elder grunts approval. Maybe, you think. Neanderthals weren't just hitting rocks together. They had actual techniques. Their tool scrapers, awls, spear points, knives weren't crude. They were refined. They used what archaeologists now call the Levallois technique, a method of preparing a stone core before knocking off a flake in a predictable shape. It's like preparing a lump of clay before slicing out the perfect cookie cutter shape only your cookie can skin a deer. You continue, trying to get the rhythm. Strike, rotate, strike again. The elder watches, nodding once when you manage to shape a usable flake. The pile of broken bits around you says more about your learning curve than your success rate, but hey, progress. Next, you move on to hafting. This is where the real magic happens. You're handed a wooden shaft ash wood, long, sanded down smooth. Its tip has been split just slightly. Your job? Insert the flint blade into the split, bind it, and seal it. Which sounds easy until you remember that you're working with nothing but tree resin sinew, and the distant hope that your hand-eye coordination has improved overnight. The resin smells sweet, sharp, and a little nauseating. It's made by heating pitch from birch bark or pine sap over the fire until it bubbles, then letting it cool into a sticky black glue. You smear it onto the inside of the split wood, press in the blade, and start wrapping it tightly with sinew soaked in water. As it dries, the sinew shrinks. The blade sets. You test the tip. Not bad. Sure, the spear is slightly crooked, and the resin's already stuck your fingers together. But it works. Probably. You glance around. Others are doing the same. Some are binding spears. Others shaping wood into digging sticks, scrapers, or even little hand-sized clubs. It's a full-on prehistoric workshop. And you are, slowly, earning your place in it. Then comes the weaving. Someone passes you a bundle of long, dried grasses. You're shown how to twist them first into thin cords, then into thicker strands. The work is meditative. Twist left, twist right, fold, repeat. It smells like old hay and feels like you're braiding someone's very scratchy hair. It's not glamorous, but it's vital. These cords will tie bundles of meat, secure tools, maybe even stitch hides. There's even evidence, though it's still debated, that Neanderthals may have woven simple nets or baskets from these same materials. The kind of thing that would never fossilize, but might have made a huge difference in daily life. You think of all the invisible things we lose to time, the soft parts of life, the fragile stuff, and you wonder how much genius simply rotted away before it could be remembered. By mid-afternoon, you're allowed to try something bold, fire hardening. One of the boys is shaping a digging stick. You watch him hold the tip of the wood over a bed of hot coals knot in the flames, just above, slowly, turning it until it blackens, strengthens, resists splintering. Then he scrapes off the char and reveals a glossy, hardened point underneath. Your turn. You take a stick, shape it, hold it over the fire. You hold it too close. The end flares up like a torch. You panic, drop it, stomp it out. No one laughs. They've probably all done the same at least once. Someone hands you another stick, and you try again. Slower this time. You learn the feel of it, the way the heat changes the wood, the smell of charring bark, the little thrill when you scrape it clean and see that hardened point emerge. It's not much, but it's something. As the sun lowers and long shadows stretch across the snow, the pace slows. Someone is sharpening bone needles with a sliver of flint. Another is rubbing ochre into a small stone. One woman is etching marks onto a bit of antler, lines and dots in a pattern that seems meaningful, though no one can say what it means. Historians still argue. You imagine one whispering beside you, whether these were symbols or decorations, stories or songs. You sit back. Your hands are raw. Your back is sore. Your head is foggy with the smoke of so much effort. But beside you lies a small pile of things you helped make. A lopsided scraper, a decent cord, a fire-hardened stick that might actually dig something. Not art, not perfection, but enough. Enough to remind you that survival isn't about big heroic acts. It's the accumulation of little clumsy triumphs. 100 tasks done just well enough to matter. You wrap a hide around your shoulders and sit near the fire, letting the heat chase off the cold as your eyelids grow heavy. You didn't invent anything today, but you built. You shaped. You tried. And in the end, that's what Neanderthals did best. They tried, day after brutal day. And for a very long time, it worked. The cave is already awake before you are. There's no rooster, no alarm clock, no chirping phone vibrating on your chest. Just the hush of feet against stone, the rustle of hide being packed, the faint metallic clink of flint blades and bone-tipped spears being checked, inspected, slung over shoulders. You open your eyes to the low glow of dawn sneaking into the cave, and the softest possible realization hums through your still sleepy brain. Today's the hunt. You sit up, blinking, and immediately wish you hadn't. Your back sounds like a collapsing log pile. Your legs, sore from hauling water yesterday, feel like cooked spaghetti if spaghetti could complain. But your Neanderthal companions are already moving. They have the solid, calm focus of people who've done this 100 times and don't need pep talks or pre-hunt smoothies. A woman tosses you a bundle of hide and a roughly folded satchel made of stitched intestines. You think it's for food, or maybe organs, possibly both. Then she points to a stone-tipped spear leaning near the entrance. It's yours, apparently. Okay? No pressure. You sling the satchel over your shoulder, pick up the spear much heavier than it looks, and follow the others out into the sharp morning air. There are 5 of you. 2 older men with heavily scarred hands, 1 middle-aged woman with arms like tree trunks, a wiry teen who moves like a cat, and you the clear liability. You're not told what to do. There's no briefing. You just start walking. The forest is silent but alert. Every branch seems tense with potential movement. Your breath mists in front of you, short and shaky. You glance down and realize you're stepping in the same footprints as the others, literally and figuratively. No one speaks. Voices are for people who can afford to spook dinner. Instead, they gesture. A hand lifts pause, a finger to the left movement, a closed fist freeze. And so you freeze, with a spear that's too long, shoulders that are too tense, and a stomach that's considering whether it really wanted that chunk of half-smoked reindeer from last night. You spot it before they do. Well, maybe not before they do, but you spot it second or third. It's a red deer, maybe 30 meters ahead, grazing cautiously by a stream. It lifts its head, ears twitching, sensing something's wrong. Everyone crouches. You crouch too, except your spear tips forward and clonks softly on a rock. The deer looks directly at you. Everyone goes still. You stop breathing, and somehow it doesn't run. The woman beside you gives the tiniest nod. Then the group begins to fan out. This, you realize, is the plan. Flank the deer, force it toward the narrow trail, ahead a natural funnel between 2 fallen logs. A perfect spot for an ambush. It's not fancy. There's no bait, no camo, no war paint, just knowledge of land, behavior, wind. You've read about Neanderthal hunts. Historians still argue whether they relied mostly on close-range ambush or longer-term tracking. Some say they had surprisingly advanced spatial planning, even rudimentary mental maps of terrain. Others believe they used endurance tactics, following herds for hours until the animal dropped from exhaustion. What's clear is they worked together. No lone wolf heroes. This was about the group. You crouch behind a dense patch of brush, heart in your throat. The deer, now growing uneasy, shifts its weight. Then it bolts, right toward the trap. The others move like a sprung snare. A spear flies from the right, thunk it grazes the deer's side. Another leaps from the shadows and slashes across its flank. The teen dives and drives his point into its leg, forcing it down. You forget your cue. You just stand there, blinking, clutching your spear like a broom. The deer kicks wildly. It shrieks a horrible, echoing sound and bucks. The older man moves in fast, slams his stone axe down once, then again, and suddenly it's quiet, breathless, final. No one cheers. They just breathe and start working. The woman gestures for you to come forward. She hands you a knife your knife and points to the underbelly. You've seen this before? Skinning, gutting. The part where the warm insides become usable outsides. You kneel, blade trembling, and begin to cut where she points. The hide parts reluctantly. Warmth seeps through your fingers. It's sticky, strange, heavier than you expected. The scent is sharp, earthy, and oddly familiar, like iron and musk and something deeply ancient. You gag. You don't mean to, but you do. No one reacts. Someone hands you a scrap of dried bark to wipe your hands. You keep working, slowly, badly, but you don't stop. The deer is divided methodically. The liver is set aside. The heart, the kidneys, the leg bones are cracked for marrow. The stomach is knotted for later use. Nothing is wasted. Even the hooves will be boiled down later for glue. You look around at the snow, now splattered with red, and feel something unfamiliar. Not horror, not revulsion, but awe. This isn't savagery. It's a grim kind of gratitude. They don't waste life. They use it, with care, with reverence. As the sun moves higher, the meat is bundled into hide satchels, lashed with sinew cord, hoisted onto shoulders. It's heavier than you expect. You carry one hindquarter. Your arms scream the whole way home. Back at the cave, fires are lit. The meat is sorted. Some is smoked. Some immediately roasted. Fat is melted into stone bowls. Blood is dripped onto dried moss and patted into cakes for later boiling. A woman stirs a thick stew in a cracked cooking stone, humming to herself. Someone hands you a strip of charred meat. You eat it. It's gamey, chewy, and completely delicious. You sit down by the fire, legs shaking, arms twitching, eyes wide. You didn't make the kill. You didn't save the day. But you were there. You held the line. You skinned. You hauled. And somewhere, in the quiet pride of the others, there's a faint nod toward you. A silent, "You're one of us today." You glance down at your blood-speckled hands, your cracked fingernails, your ash-marked face, and wonder how many more of these days you could survive. Honestly, not many. But maybe you've got one or two more in you. You're up before dawn this time, not by choice, more by necessity, thanks to the freezing draft that's been sneaking into your corner of the cave like a petty thief stealing your warmth. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders and stare into the flickering firelight, barely glowing, more a memory of flame than an actual heat source. You stretch, cautiously. Your legs are sore from yesterday's hunt. Your arms ache from hauling meat. Your knees, well, let's just say your knees have filed a formal complaint with your spine. But none of that matters today. Because today, you're about to discover a much less glamorous, but just as essential part of Neanderthal life. Staying alive without moving much. That's right. No grand hunt. No chase. No dramatic ambush. Just the quiet, repetitive, weirdly peaceful work of preserving, protecting, and preparing for when the animals don't come, or the weather decides to get personal. The cave is mostly quiet. The older woman, who acts like a sort of quartermaster, is already awake. She's stirring something thick and grayish in a stone bowl. You'd ask what it is, but last time you tried, it turned out to be boiled bone paste with a hint of mashed grubs. You offer a vague smile and back away politely. Your actual assignment this morning: meat preservation. The meat from yesterday's kill is being prepped for long-term storage, not with freezers, salt, or vacuum sealing. Know you're entering the smoking pit zone, and it is, quite literally, a pit. At the edge of the cave floor, a shallow depression has been dug and lined with hot stones. Thin racks of green wood are arranged above it, and a low, smoky fire is kept just barely alive with wet bark and moss. You're handed a strip of deer meat and shown how to hang it just right flat, not bunched. Too close to the flame and it cooks. Too far and it won't dry. There's an art to it, and you are not an artist. Your first few strips slip through the rack and land in the smoke. One catches fire briefly. The teen who helped with the kill snorts quietly, but fixes it for you, rehanging the meat properly. You mouth thanks. He shrugs. Smoking meat takes hours, sometimes days, but the result is a leathery, dark, almost jerky-like strip that can last for weeks, maybe longer. In a world without refrigeration, that's pure magic. Or, more accurately, science that no one here calls science. You move on to hide scraping next. That's right, you've leveled up to Neanderthal tanning. First, the hides are soaked in water and wood ash for a day or two. Then comes the scraping, removing fat, flesh, and hair from the inside. You're given a crescent-shaped scraper made from bone. The hide is draped over a log. You lean into it. You scrape. It smells. A lot. You weren't prepared for this. It's not just animal. It's damp, slightly rotted, and sticky. The hide resists. Your arms burn. Your scraper squeaks across sinew that doesn't want to let go. Eventually, you get a rhythm. Scrape. Shift. Pull. The woman beside you is already halfway through her second hide. You're still on 1/4 of your first. But it's coming off. And when it does, and the raw inside of the hide is finally exposed, it starts to make sense. This isn't just work, it's transformation. Turning the dead into something useful. Clothing, blankets, straps. You're literally shaping survival out of stench and sinew. Later, they'll soften the hides using animal brains. Yes, brains. You're told each animal has just enough brain matter to tan its own skin. That's either a poetic coincidence or prehistoric efficiency at its weirdest. Either way, you're grateful you're not on brain duty. After a break meeting, chewing on smoked meat and nearly breaking a molar you're shown how to grind pigments. Yes, pigments. Because survival isn't all blood and scraping. Sometimes it's color too. A flat stone is laid out. Ochre, reddish-brown earth is handed to you in a chalky lump. You're shown how to grind it against the flat rock until it turns to powder. Then a bit of water is added, or spit, or animal fat. The mixture becomes a paint. What's it for? No one says. But a younger woman dips her finger in it and begins drawing on a flat bit of cave wall. Shapes, swirls, a handprint. You recognize the gesture. It's not decoration. It's declaration. I was here. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals created symbolic art the same way Homo sapiens did. There are disputed pigment stains in Spanish caves, possibly 60,000 years old, that some believe were theirs. But the debate continues. Was it art or accident, meaning, or mechanics? You decide it doesn't really matter. Sitting there, red powder on your fingers, watching a simple handprint bloom on stone, you feel it. The desire to mark, to remember, to be remembered. That's universal. And possibly older than words. As the day darkens, the air in the cave grows thick with smoke and effort. Someone is sharpening bone needles. Another is hollowing out a chunk of wood with hot coals, slowly shaping it into a bowl. You help stir a paste of crushed nuts and dried berries. It tastes like slightly burnt trail mix, but after weeks of meat, it's shockingly good. There's laughter too. Quiet, low, but real. A baby sneezes. A man tries on a too small hide wrap, and everyone chuckles when it barely covers his backside. You're still the outsider, but now you're the outsider who knows how to hang meat, scrape hide, crush pigment, and not burn down the cave. Progress. You sit back against the wall as night falls, watching the handprint dry on the stone. Someone's snoring. Someone else is still poking coals with a stick. You close your eyes. Today, you didn't run. You didn't fight. You didn't chase or cut or bleed. You worked. Quietly. Diligently. Like they did. And you're starting to suspect that back then, that kind of day was considered a very good day indeed. You wake to a strange stillness. No scraping of tools. No smoke curling lazily from the hearth. No low murmurs of morning voices echoing off cave walls. Just the sharp, expectant silence of people on the edge of motion. And then you see it, the bundles. Everywhere. Piled near the entrance, rolled tight with sinew. Furs, tools, fire kits, meat. Even little stone trinkets, wrapped in leather, like someone didn't want to leave behind their favorite pebble. That's when it hits you. Today, you're migrating. Again. You sit up, bleary and aching, and watch as a young boy tries to drag a sled made of curved branches across the floor. It squeaks pitifully. One of the older men adjusts the bindings, ties them tighter, and gestures for the boy to try again. It glides more smoothly this time, and that's your cue. You have about 5 minutes to turn into a functioning member of a Paleolithic caravan. So, you start packing. Poorly. Your hide wrap falls open 3 times. You forget to tie off one end of your food pouch, and a dried beetle leg falls out. Your bone awl pokes a hole in the wrong satchel. By the time you lift the whole bundle onto your back, it's lopsided, awkward, and already trying to slide off your shoulder. Still, nobody laughs. They just adjust their own gear and move on. This isn't a performance. It's logistics. And everyone's done it dozens of times before. Because Neanderthals didn't stick to one cave like a Netflix subscription. They moved. Seasonally, strategically. Sometimes to follow herds, sometimes to find better shelter, and sometimes because the last cave got too full of fleas, or bones, or someone else's aggressive cousin. Historians still debate whether their movements followed strict migratory patterns or were more opportunistic. What's agreed on is that mobility wasn't optional. It was life. So, you join the slow procession as it snakes out of the cave. 12 people total. 2 sleds, a smoldering fire bundle carried in a bark cup wrapped in moss. 1 toddler strapped to her mother's back. 1 ancient grandmother who rides quietly on a sled pulled by the wiry teenage boy with the resting scowl. You fall into place near the middle, trying not to trip over your own feet. The world outside the cave is different, softer, warmer. Not warm exactly, but less frozen. Snow has retreated in patches. Grass is starting to reappear crushed, damp, but alive. Tiny green shoots poke up near tree roots, like brave little idiots daring the cold to return. Birdsong trickles from the canopy above. It's beautiful and exhausting. Because the terrain is uneven, the sled is heavier than you expected, and you've made the rookie mistake of wearing too many layers. Within an hour, your back is damp with sweat, and your knees have decided to rebel. Still, you keep walking. The group moves like water quiet, adaptable, and constant. They know where to pause, when to listen, how to cross streams without soaking every hide they own. When you nearly faceplant trying to leap a mossy rock, a young girl offers you her hand. You feel ridiculous, but grateful. By midday, the group stops to rest beneath a rock overhang that smells faintly of fox urine. You eat strips of smoked meat and hard root slices with the consistency of dried soap. One man pulls out a pouch of powdered ochre and paints a stripe across his child's forehead. You're not sure if it's for luck, protection, or just prehistoric flair. After the break, the trail gets steeper. You climb over fallen logs, slick with melting frost. You cross a narrow stream on shaky rocks, pretending not to panic as your foot slips halfway in. Everyone ignores it. You squish for the next mile. And then, as the sun angles toward late afternoon, you reach it. A ridge. You crest the rise and stop. Below, stretching out like a hand-unrolled scroll, is a valley. Wide, green, scattered with half-thawed ponds and clumps of trees just beginning to show buds. In the distance, you spot dark shapes moving slowly, deer maybe, or bison. Hard to say, but definitely food. The group pauses as one. Nobody speaks. It's like arriving at a concert hall before the orchestra starts playing. Quiet, sacred, full of potential. This will be your new home, for now. And it's not just chosen for the view. The ridge gives visibility. The river provides water. The trees offer fuel and shelter material. And the half-open plain below? A buffet of hoofed protein just waiting to be outsmarted. The descent is slow. The older woman rides again. The little ones run ahead, laughing. Your thighs scream. Your bundle digs into your shoulder like it's trying to hatch. Still, you make it. At the base of the valley, near a bend in the river, the group fans out. They choose a dry rise with a few boulders for shelter and a windbreak made of low shrubs. Already, someone is stacking firewood. Another begins clearing grass for sleeping mats. You drop your bundle with a thud and collapse beside it. And then you realize this isn't just walking. It's not just a commute. It's survival choreography. They know how to scout safe paths. They read the weather by scent. They track animal migrations without needing maps or apps or blinking GPS. And they can do it all while hauling a sled made of tree bark and lashed intestines. You chew on a root and try not to cry from admiration. Later, as stars begin to blink through the evening haze, the fire crackles to life. A stew is started. Someone rubs red ochre into a stone. Another sharpens spear tips by firelight. And you just sit, letting your legs recover, letting your lungs stop wheezing, and watching as the group settles into this new place as if it's always been home. You think of your own life, the way you panic when your phone charger is missing, how you feel off when your favorite coffee shop changes music, the absolute meltdown when your bus is 5 minutes late. And these people? They can migrate across raw terrain, build a shelter from scratch, and cook dinner over a rock hearthall before sundown. You wrap a hide around your shoulders and lean into the fire. And for a brief, flickering moment, you wonder, could I have done this? Could I live like this? And even more dangerously, would I want to? You wake up to a different kind of silence. Not the peaceful hush of a sleepy morning, but the tight, brittle quiet of a rumor in this case, a cave that's holding its breath. Your body is still half covered in fur, but there's a strange tension in the air, as if the wind itself is hesitating outside the stone walls. You rub the sleep from your eyes and realize that most of the group is already awake. Nobody's speaking. Nobody's cooking. Instead, they're packing. Again. But this time, not for migration. For defense. The woman who usually hums while stirring meat paste is sharpening a spear with a rapid rhythm that's almost musical, except it's too fast, too focused. The children are being quietly ushered toward the back of the cave. The fire is being rebuilt, not for warmth, but for light. And the air outside smells different. Sharp, earthy, disturbed. Something has changed in the valley. You step out, barefoot, blinking into the pale gray of early dawn. The river is still flowing. The trees still whisper. But there are no birds singing. Not one. Even the sky feels cautious. The scouts returned late last night, but no one talked about what they saw. A footprint, maybe. A shadow. A bit of disturbed ash from an old fire that shouldn't have been there. Nothing certain, but enough to shift the entire mood. You start helping without being asked. It's not that you've become particularly skilled, but you're no longer completely useless. And that alone makes you feel like you've passed some invisible test. You're handed a pile of thorny branches and directed toward the brush wall that acts as a perimeter. It's a rudimentary setup. Dense foliage packed between large stones to create a kind of natural barrier. Not enough to stop an attack, but enough to slow it. You add your branches. Carefully. Quietly. One thistle stabs your palm. You wince, bite your lip, keep going. Because today isn't about comfort. It's about caution. Neanderthals didn't have stone fortresses or raised lookouts or elaborate warning systems. But they had instincts and group memory and a kind of alertness that never truly shut off. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals engaged in organized conflict with other hominin species. Some sites show signs of trauma that might have come from violence. Others suggest peaceful overlap. But evidence of repeated occupation being abruptly abandoned, that suggests someone or something pushed them out. And when your only home is the land around you, every new footprint is a potential eviction notice. The group spends the morning reinforcing the camp. Spears are checked. Sling stones are gathered. Fire bundles are doubled. You help sharpen points on a few sticks, not exactly elegant weapons, but good for close defense. The teenage boy watches you for a moment, then takes your stick, snaps off the crooked end, and hands it back. Better now. Apparently, you're part of the team. By afternoon, clouds begin to gather. Thick, gray, brooding clouds that drape themselves across the ridge like they're trying to listen in. The wind shifts direction. Again. And that's when the smell hits. Smoke. Not from your fire. From somewhere else. Everyone smells it at once. Heads snap up. Eyes scan the horizon. It's faint, barely there, but enough to raise hackles and quicken breath. You don't see anything through the trees. No movement. No glint of fire. But the smell stays, clinging to the wind like an unwelcome guest. The older man with the limp grunts something, gestures toward the deeper woods. 3 people, including the wiry teenage boy, move out silently, weapons drawn. Not to attack, just to see, to know. The rest of you stay behind, waiting, watching. And that's somehow worse. You try to stay useful, tend the fire, double-check the packs, recount the meat strips, anything to keep your hands busy while your mind is screaming questions you can't answer. What if it's Homo sapiens? What if it's another Neanderthal group? What if it's nothing? Or worse, something you haven't imagined yet? Your imagination is your worst enemy right now. Every birdless branch looks suspicious. Every breeze feels loaded with footsteps. When the scouts return, they say nothing, but their faces say everything. The boy nods once, slow, controlled, and the group shifts again. A second fire is started on purpose at the edge of the camp. It's a message. We're here. We see you. Maybe that's all it takes. Maybe not. No one knows. Dinner is eaten early and fast. Little conversation. Just the crunch of root vegetables and the crackle of fire. The baby doesn't cry. Even she can feel the tension in the air. As night falls, the fires are fed steadily. You're given a spear. It's not ceremonial. It's just practical. You sit close to the perimeter now, listening to the wind scrape through the trees. The cold is biting again, but no one moves from their post. You wrap the fur tighter around your legs, eyes darting between the shadows. Hours pass. The fire dances. Sparks drift upward like lazy ghosts. Your hands begin to tremble not from cold, but from the sheer weight of waiting. Because it's not just about fighting a predator or surviving a bad winter. It's about defending what little you have. A handful of tools, a cave, a child, a story that isn't finished yet. That's what you start to understand. Neanderthals didn't just live in the margins. They held on to their place in the world like it mattered. Because it did. Even if history forgets most of their names, they remembered each other and protected what they had. Sometime after midnight, a howl splits the valley. Not a wolf, not human, something in between. The fire roars louder as someone tosses on another log. The group tightens their circle. Spears are lifted. Your grip tightens, and your breath catches. Not in fear, exactly, but in solidarity. You're not a Neanderthal. Not really. You still think in Wi-Fi and traffic lights and cereal brands. But tonight, your heartbeat matches theirs. Steady, ready, and willing to stay awake just in case the dark decides to come closer. You sleep, but only lightly. The valley is hushed again, but in a different way than before. The tension has softened, stretched into something quieter like a held breath slowly being released. When you finally wake, the sun has already climbed high into a cold blue sky. The fires are down to embers, and the smell of wood smoke clings to everything: your fur wrap, your hair, even your hands. But there's something else in the air too, something harder to name. Expectation, maybe. A shift. The group is gathered near the edge of camp. You approach, blinking sleep from your eyes, and that's when you see them. Strangers. 3 of them. They don't look like your group. Not quite. Their faces are narrower, their brows less heavy, their arms thinner but long and sinewy. They wear their hides differently, wrapped closer to the body, fastened with bone toggles. One carries a bundle of spears bound with sinew and bark strips. The others have nothing in their hands, but everything in their eyes. You stand still, unsure of what to do. These are not Neanderthals. These are Homo sapiens. And suddenly, history folds in on itself. You've read about this moment, maybe seen it illustrated in museum dioramas. 2 human species meeting, measuring each other with cautious curiosity. But this isn't an exhibit. It's a clearing in the middle of the Ice Age. It's silent glances, shared air, and the unmistakable knowledge that something big is happening. No one moves at first. Your Neanderthal group doesn't raise weapons, but they don't exactly roll out a mammoth skin welcome mat either. They watch. One of the elders tilts his head slightly with suspicion, more calculation. The sapiens do the same. Their eyes flick between individuals, their posture calm but alert. Then someone does something unexpected. She kneels. One of the women from your group, a wiry, middle-aged Neanderthal with a face like weathered bark and the gentlest hands you've ever seen, steps forward. She crouches, slowly, deliberately, and lays a small item on the ground, a dried rabbit's foot. It's not much, but it's everything. An offering. The strangers freeze. One of them, likely their leader, a tall figure with soot-marked cheek, steps forward in turn. From a pouch on his belt, he produces a rough chunk of obsidian, the size of your palm, polished, sharp-edged, valuable. He places it beside the rabbit's foot, then steps back. The silence feels like a drumbeat, and then, so quietly it almost escapes notice, the Neanderthal woman nods. The trade is accepted. You watch, awestruck, as more items appear. A bone needle, a bundle of dried berries, a length of sinew cord, a piece of fish skin. One of the strangers even offers a string of shells, drilled, strung, and likely worn as decoration. It's not just barter, it's conversation, without words. Historians still debate how often this happened, how frequently Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interacted, and in what ways. Was there mutual benefit? Intermarriage? Peaceful cohabitation? Or was this a rare exception in a world mostly ruled by rivalry? You suspect the answer is all of the above. That human history, even back here in the shadowed corners of deep time, was already too messy to fit into neat categories. But here, in this little valley, with its windswept grass and birds wheeling high overhead, it's working. Sort of. There's still space between the groups. Still hesitation. But there's no shouting. No spears thrown. Just a quiet, flickering curiosity like two mirrors trying to understand the reflection. Later that afternoon, something even stranger happens. One of the sapiens, the youngest, barely more than a boy, sits down near the central fire. He picks up a stick, scrapes a circle into the dirt, then adds dots inside it. A shape, a symbol, a message. A child from your Neanderthal group sees this, crouches beside him, and adds to the image. A swirl, then a pair of lines. Then carefully, slowly, her handprint pressed into the soil beside his. The boy smiles, and just like that, the camp breathes easier. There are no shared languages, no treaties signed. But in dirt and ash and simple shapes, they find a way to speak. You sit beside them and trace your own circle into the dirt. No one stops you. The teenage boy from your group adds a spiral. The sapiens woman responds with a zigzag. You're not sure what it means, but it feels like a story. One told by hands and dust and trust. That night, the strangers don't stay in the cave. But they don't leave entirely either. They make camp at the edge of the clearing, within view, their own fire casting small golden halos against the brush. You can see their silhouettes lofting softly, passing food, tending to their gear. It's like watching an alternate version of your group, separated not by space, but by species. There's something both comforting and heartbreaking in it. Comforting, because it reminds you that connection is possible even without language, even between strangers. Heartbreaking, because you already know how the story ends. You know that in a few thousand years, Neanderthals will vanish. Their DNA will remain in yours, like echoes in a canyon. But the people, their world, their way, will be gone. And these visitors, these lean, fast-thinking, endlessly adapting Homo sapiens, they'll be the ones who stay. But right now, no one knows that. Right now, they share food and stories in the form of dirt drawings and a little music, thanks to a bone flute someone pulls from their pouch near dusk. The notes are high and soft, wobbling on the cold air like dandelion seeds. You lie on your back, staring up at the stars, letting it wash over you. The two fires flicker. The valley sleeps. And for one fleeting moment, in a time long forgotten, two kinds of human beings, born from different branches of the same ancient tree, sit not as enemies, but as neighbors. The next morning is oddly quiet again, but this time, it's not tension. It's calm. Like the valley has decided to take a deep breath after everything it's held in. The fire still smolders. The ground is soft with dew, and someone, probably that same teenager with a constantly furrowed brow, has left a few fresh fish skewered and roasting over a low flame. They smell slightly burnt, but in a comforting way, like someone tried their best. The Homo sapiens are still here. Their fire burns lower now, and one of them waves gently across the clearing. Your group doesn't wave back, but there's no growl either. It's something in between, a recognition, a quiet nod. You exist. So do we. And maybe that's enough. They don't stay long. By midday, they've packed up. No dramatic goodbyes. Just a few final glances, a trace of their footprints in the mud, and the smell of foreign fire fading on the wind. One of the Neanderthal women watches them disappear between the trees. She doesn't speak, just touches the necklace of fox teeth around her neck. A memory, maybe. You wander over to the dirt drawings near the fire. Some have been scuffed away by feet and wind, but a few remain. Handprints, circles, lines, the ghost of a heart-like leaf, marks that probably mean nothing and yet feel like everything. You crouch down and add one more, a wobbly spiral, copied from the teenage boy's design. You have no idea what it means, but it feels right. That afternoon is spent in quiet work. Tools are repaired, furs are patched, some of the meat is smoked. The usual rhythms return, not because the fear is gone, but because the world insists on moving forward, even when the future is uncertain, especially when it is. Historians still debate how long these brief cohabitations lasted: days, weeks, generations, whether they ended in violence, disease, or slow cultural absorption. But you can't help wondering if they also ended sometimes in moments like this. Shared silence, a trade, a tune played on a bone flute. Because not all stories end with conquest. Some just fade together. At sunset, you sit on a rock near the river. It's quiet now, just the steady rush of water and the occasional flick of a fishtail beneath the surface. The sky glows in muted streaks of orange and mauve. A heron lands nearby, perfectly indifferent to your presence. You stretch your legs, now calloused and bruised from days of travel and tension, and realize something strange. You feel part of this. Not a guest, not a lost tourist in a time machine, but a witness, a quiet observer of a world that came before, stubborn, cold, beautiful, and a world that's already shifting into something else. You look back toward camp. One of the kids is chewing on a beetle, crunching enthusiastically. You smile. There it is, the end of the world, the beginning of another, and in between, just people, eating bugs, watching stars, drawing spirals in dirt because they feel like symbols, even if no one knows why. You stand, brush the dust from your furs, and step into the dimming light. Whatever happens next, you've seen something real, not just history, prehistory, and you've lived through it for more than a day. So, despite the cold and the hunger and the sheer number of sharp sticks you've tripped over, you made it. Sort of. Well done. And now, with the fire behind you, and the valley stretching out like a soft sigh, you start to let go. Your breath slows. The wind moves gently across the grass, making that quiet rustling sound that always feels like a lullaby whispered by the land itself. Somewhere far off, an owl calls once, then settles into the dark. You lie back on your bed of furs, eyes half closed, listening to the crackle of the fire and the sleepy shuffles of the people around you. The smell of smoke, of damp moss and warm hide, wraps around you like a blanket. The stars blink above, timeless and cold, just as they did for Neanderthals and will for us. And for a moment, you feel small in the best possible way, a speck in a long, complicated story. One species among many, but part of it. The way your chest rises and falls, the way your fingers curl around a carved bit of wood, the way you remember the pattern of the dirt drawings, all of it is proof that something ancient still lingers in us, still survives. So tonight, let your mind drift through those forests. Let your thoughts wander past the firelight, where mammoths once walked and two kinds of humans met not with conquest, but with curiosity. You're safe now. You're warm. And the world, as harsh and wild as it once was, has paused just long enough for you to rest. Sleep well, traveler. You've earned it. End of story. Sweet dreams.